All right, so we'll get started. Hi, everyone. It is 4:01 Eastern Standard Time, and this is TMC Connect session that we are calling Using Technology to Be Our Better Selves. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. This is going to be recorded, so we'll send out a copy of the recording tomorrow, along with any deliverables or takeaways that we can get from the session today. Also, all lines are muted, but we certainly want you to voice your questions, your comments in the chat box or the Q&A. Let us know what you think and if you have any questions. And so to get things started, just wanted to introduce real quick the people that we have on our panel today. We are delighted to have Jennifer Miller from Panorama Mortgage. Hi, Jennifer. And then we've got Amy Blankson and Andrew Montesanos from the Digital Wellness Institute. So I wanted to just get started a little bit with a couple, just your introductions. Jennifer, do you want to start off with just introducing yourself and giving a little bit background about your company and your position there?
Sure. I work at Panorama Mortgage Group, which is an umbrella organization that houses several mortgage brands, one of which you guys might be most familiar with, which is Altera Home Loans, but also Legacy, Inspiro, and a couple of new ones that are just coming on board. And my role is Chief People Officer for the group.
Thank you. And Amy, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and the Digital Wellness Institute?
Wonderful. I'm so glad to be here and to get to chat with all of you. I'm Amy Blankson. I'm the co-founder of the Digital Wellness Institute, and I am also have a background in positive psychology and have been serving on the UN Global Happiness Council for about 3 years now. I've been speaking and writing about the intersection of happiness and technology for almost a decade, and this has become a real passion for me. So I'm excited to get to share some of my research and findings with you to help make work for yourself and for your employees a little easier.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy. Hi, Andrew. Andrew, did you want to give a quick hello?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Amy. Yeah, my name is Andrew Montesanos. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships at the Institute, and I have a background in consulting as well as the digital wellness industry. I have a startup here in Chicago called Sign Off, where we bring together a community through events and partnerships with education. And that's how I found my way to the Institute, where we're bringing this educative starting point for people to get a grip on their digital lives and balancing that professionally, which I'm passionate about. So I'm excited to learn more about your industry.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. So let's start out by talking about what is digital wellness. We have had, this is the second session that we've had sort of around this, and we put some stuff out on social media, and we do have a bit more people on the call today, but we're looking to get even more as we go forward with this initiative or just with this conversation. So Amy, did you want to start with just sort of giving us a definition about what digital wellness is and what that means, what it should mean to us?
Digital wellness is it's a brand new field. It's something that has emerged probably within the last 2 to 3 years as really taking on a mainstream understanding. And so if you're not familiar with the term, you're not alone. And we wanted to start off today by just covering that because I think it's still kind of unfamiliar for a lot of people. We're familiar within the HR, learning development space, and even corporate space with, of course, mental wellness and emotional wellness and cognitive wellness and physical wellness. And each one of those is a different layer of our humanity, right? But what we're finding is that digital wellness is a conversation that has to happen in our modern society because it's touching upon all those other dimensions of wellness, that we can't talk about cognitive wellness without talking about digital wellness and how productivity is being shaped by the amount of time we're spending on screens. Likewise, the impact on our relationships, online and offline, or the impact on our physical bodies from sitting at computers for so long. And so digital wellness, the official definition is that it is a way of life in which we are balancing our health and our technology use to optimally reach our potential. So basically, we're looking for balance. We're looking for a way to live with technology and not escape from it. We're looking for a way to keep our sanity while using technology for what I call its best and highest purposes.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense to me because I feel like I'm going a little insane these days with all of the with being on my phone and on Facebook and everything that's going on. So I'm sure those of you in the audience or the attendees, if you can relate, pop something in the chat box. But I think we're all going through a little bit of a digital anxiety, for lack of a better word, right now. So this obviously, Jennifer, this came up for you. I mean, interestingly enough, you've been looking into this, and so it was sort of a beautiful coincidence that we were talking with Amy and the Digital Wellness Institute, but you were also doing some research into this yourself.
Yeah, and again, I didn't even know that it was a thing called digital wellness. So that was a happy coincidence. What we noticed, and when I say we, I've got I think my partner in crime, Jamie Akers, is one of the participants here in the call. So what we started to notice as the company started to work from home, and the business became super aggressive, was, we were fortunate to have great technology. We were very well set up at Panorama. We had been working with teams for probably 6 or 9 months before that. We're very, kind of into our technology. And so the process of getting home and working was pretty smooth. But what we started to notice was that people were accessible for longer and longer in the day. So even within my own team, suddenly, because the normal rhythm would be people are probably getting ready to come to work and they show up to work and then you start talking. Then our conversations started to get early and earlier. So like 6:30 in the morning, people are sitting around in their pajamas, hopefully, sending messages. And then the day would extend longer and these conversations were going on and on. And then that started us thinking about, what about our friendly hourly workers who are clocking in and out? Is this wonderful use of technology expanding their day, but we don't know it, which is then, a concern for the following of state and federal laws regarding, FLSA guidelines. And then what we started to notice is people were getting really damn tired. We heard them talking about fatigue. We were feeling fatigue, but at the same time, there was this great thing, like we were using technology to its fullest at work, but we could see people were getting more available at work and more run down. So we started to look at what are things that we can do to support employees while we're working remotely and beyond that. So we started searching from a benefits angle. What are benefits that we could offer? There are, online coaching platforms to kind of help balance out your life and figure out, how to meet your objectives. Namaste. I don't know if it's .org or probably .com, right? Which shows you how to do, you can do yoga classes during your lunch hours. We can encourage people to use technology, but to take a break and do something good. So that's sort of what, and then coincidentally, this topic came up. And so we were really interested in talking to Amy and to Andrew about what can we do? One, we don't know very much about this topic. So what are you guys seeing? Is this happening everywhere? I didn't know. And then what can we do about it? So that's sort of how we got engaged in the discussion.
Excellent. Yeah. So when we were doing our prep call, you had a lot of questions for Amy, and just talking about the different things that, like you just said, like what we can do, and what they would suggest. And I know that we're coming from the mortgage industry, and what that means for us, but she also works with several other industries. I mean, it's not specific to one industry, right? But she's wanting to really know more specifically to our sales folks and our operation folks, what that means. So did you have any questions for her that, when we were going through, you wanted to?
So one of the things I was curious about are, so when we're starting to think about this, well, the one thing I wanted to know is, and you're kind of saying this, but what are you seeing across the board? Like, what are some of the key indicators that you're seeing about the impact of technology in the negative sense, and what we should be aware of as HR folks who are supporting employees?
Absolutely. I mean, the mortgage industry is both unique and not unique in this realm. Digital wellness is something that across the board, all industries are struggling with, but I know the mortgage industry is going through a historical record time of closings between refis and home closings. I actually have been in the throes of trying to help my in-laws purchase a house. And so I've gotten to be in the mix on the other side of the fun. And I understand the quantity and volume and the crazy hours that your industry is facing that no other industry is facing. And it's both a mixed blessing, right? It's wonderful, there's business. And at the same time, I have heard loud and clear, not just from a TMC, but also some other companies I work with, that there's a breaking point coming in the near future, and companies are looking for ways to retain employees, to keep the morale up, to be able to support employees with some very actionable, practical strategies for helping them, whether it is providing information about like setting up your home office with ergonomic friendly chairs or laptop supports or blue light glasses. So that the very tangible products, down to how do you schedule your time and how do you deal with what's called Zoom fatigue, which is, if you haven't heard of Zoom fatigue, I think that you soon will resonate with it or feel it. And it is just the idea that every phone call we have now is on Zoom or some other virtual platform. And what that means is that there is a toll on our bodies and our minds. That there was a study that came out from National Geographic in April this year talking about how difficult it is in a Zoom platform, which I recognize the irony of us talking on Zoom while we're talking about Zoom fatigue, but we'll just, we'll roll with it. It is that there's the challenge of seeing all the participants, there's the chat, there's all the different faces, and the sense that you have to be constantly on, even though you're not physically with another person. So there's kind of awkwardness, there's pressure, and there's distraction. Plus there's all the background noise of things that might be going on in your home that who knows what is going on in your life. So all of that goes to this sense of continuous partial attention, which has been well researched in the field of psychology, that has found that your productivity levels may be the same or higher, but it takes you longer to get tasks done. At the same time, we're finding that the industry is expecting us to get more done, both because there's pressure and because we don't have the commute that we used to have. So the sense that we can pack more into the day is very possible. And we've got exactly what you were talking about, Jen, with the accessibility of our phone within the first 5 minutes of waking up, or as we're going to sleep, has become a real albatross for so many individuals, because our worlds revolve around these little devices in our hands that are both for play and learning and communication and fun, but they're with us all the time. And one of the statistics that really got me was that it said that 50% of Americans feel like they have to check their email after 11 p.m. at night. This was before the pandemic, by the way. So you can imagine where that pressure has gone to now, in the sense that if I don't check my email after 11, I'm going to be behind tomorrow. And then there's the other side of the research, which we're finding, that says that for individuals who send an email, if you think, okay, I'll send this email after 11 p.m. so that tomorrow morning I can get ahead, research shows that for every email you send, it spawns 4 more in return. So though you thought you were getting ahead at 11 p.m., everyone else is checking their email at 11 p.m. and now you have 4 more emails to deal with in the morning. I know that this probably is in the mortgage industry even more true, because you're communicating
Yes.
with buyers and lenders and sellers and
realtors and
So that's,
Yeah.
I was about to use a word. I'm not going to use that word. So let me ask you, I have so many questions around this, and I know panelists are, guys, drop in your questions, because now the first question I want to ask is, from your research, how can we identify, are there signals that we can identify if people are kind of falling into this fatigue that will help us figure out where this is happening?
Yes, there sure is. So one of the best signals is self-scanning. So it can be as sophisticated as taking a survey. And we do have a survey at the Institute that's free if anyone wants to take it to see how they're doing with their digital wellness. It's called digitalflourishing.com. It takes like less than 5 minutes, and it just walks you through the 8 dimensions of digital wellness that you can explore. So it's not just how long are you on screens? That was where digital wellness was like 2 years ago. Now it's evolved to look at, wow, digital wellness covers productivity, communication, relationships, physical health, mental health, your digital citizenship, your data, privacy. So there's a whole realm. So you can check that out. But if you want a more low-key way to do some self-exploration about your digital wellness or warning signs, it would be to simply do a body scan meditation. You take 2 minutes, you close your eyes, and you literally start at the top of your head and you walk down your body to see where you're feeling things. Now, this sounds very kind of woo at this point, but I do think that there's a real benefit to being able to check in with yourself, because obviously no one knows you better than yourself. But what we're looking for is, does your neck ache from leaning over too often, or perhaps you're trying to squint to look at your laptop and because your screen's not high enough for you? Do your eyes feel dry because you've been staring at a screen for so long? Or they could feel like they burn or they itch. Does your lower back and your hamstrings feel tight because you've been sitting for too long without getting up to take breaks? Are you getting frequent headaches? Do you feel like you are more irritable? I notice that sometimes when I've crossed that line, and if you have a spouse or significant other, they're happy to tell you. She's been on the computer.
Attendees, raise your hand if you feel any of these symptoms.
Right? Or all of the above, right? That's a sign that you either need to take a break, or that you need to step back, or you need to do something different to shake things up. And I have been recommending something that I never thought I would recommend, but for those who are working from home, I recommend that you go wash some dishes. That between Zoom calls, go wash some dishes, fold some laundry, do something very manual so that you can use your gross motor skills to get away from the delicate, fine motor skills and the bright lights of your computer. So if you've hated home chores as much as I do, this might be your moment to rethink that and change your mindset about how you break up your day so that you can have online and offline activities.
So some of this stuff is because I had no idea that these things there was this thing called digital well-being. This is really, I want to say, alarming and illuminating. And certainly a call for self-awareness. I wanted to ask you, so this came up again recently when my colleague and I were talking about the emails. So we have a couple folks, I'm not going to reveal their names, protect the innocent, on our team in their Sunday email senders. And we were noticing sort of this feeling, this like, of I don't know, like anxiety or dread around, okay, now it's Sunday and I'm getting this message and it's coming from this person I feel like I should respond. How have people successfully communicated in the organization about this topic specifically to that point? Because I find that to be one of the things that happens the most is this, well, I'm available on Sunday and I need to bang out these messages because this is my time. How do we navigate that?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And I'm going to totally date myself here. But, back in the old days, we used to just have an answering machine. People would either show up in person or they'd leave you a message on your answering machine, and that was it. And now we have phone, text, Slack, social, in person, and WhatsApp, and a combination of all of those. So we have communication streams coming every which way, and at all times of the day. And we're more global, so we're now communicating across time zones that was not possible in the past. So we have a lot of new factors. And one of the things that we at the Institute have been doing a lot of work with companies around creating what's called a communication charter. So a communication charter is designed for small teams that work together on a very frequent basis. So this is not an entire organization activity. It's really who you work with all the time. And the goal is to walk through and talk about not just the hours that you work during the day, but the methods of communication you're going to use for different types of communication. So if you're going to send an FYI, let's use email. If we're going to do something urgent, let's do it on text. If it's going to be something that is a company-wide announcement, that's going to be on email, so that you know and you can begin to figure out where the channels are coming from. Now, why this makes a difference, though, is that the research is showing that different industries, ages, and regions of the country have different expectations on communication time. So if you live in New York and you're in financial services industry and you are in Gen Z, not only do you respond within 15 minutes, but you expect others to respond to you in 15 minutes. But if you're in the nonprofit industry in the Midwest and you're in your 50s, your expected response time, or what you think is acceptable, can be upwards of a week. So now you've got somebody from New York and financial services communicating to someone in the Midwest who thinks that they have a week to respond, and there's a lot of frustration. We see this happen with teams, and especially global teams that have very different ideas for regionally and industry-wise expectations. And so the best way to eliminate that rub is to just have a conversation. And there's actually a template that we use at the Institute to help organizations walk through, okay, here's how we're going to do this. This is how we're going to talk. This is when we're going to talk. And this is how we hold each other accountable, which is the third really important part of this, Jen, which is, if we agree as an organization not to text each other on the weekend, and then somebody sends that one text that triggers the domino effect of text, how do we hold them accountable? Do we? Is that something that can be done? Is there any kind of peer pressure that can help hold each other accountable, or a creed that you uphold or put at the bottom of your email to really reinforce the values that your organization upholds? Because that accountability piece is key. And what we're finding is in Europe that there is the right to disconnect movement. I'm sure Andrew can tell you more and more about this, where you actually have a legal right to disconnect on vacation, weekends, or after hours. That seems unfathomable in the United States right now, but it's certainly something I'm hoping we're moving towards. And it's certainly something within the corporate industry we should keep an eye on, because I think that's where we're heading.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. When we started talking, I said that we were looking at Panorama, technology and tools that we could use to help people achieve a better balance. And again, not even knowing that this bigger picture existed. I mean, we knew it, but we didn't know it was called a thing, and that it was really being actively studied. So again, we started, for all of you other folks who may participate in the benefits world in HR, it's getting to be about time for open enrollment. So what we were doing is really, we're doing a benefit survey about our healthcare benefits and how competitive they are and all this kind of thing. And one of the questions that we're asking is around digital tools, other benefits that people might be interested in. And because we're all working remotely, we're picking, sort of a couple of the Namaste's and different online tools to help people. So it's I don't know if it's ironic, it's like digital tools to help you disconnect. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to get your thoughts, like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because now I'm starting to think maybe we shouldn't promote a digital well-being tool to help you be more supportive of your well-being. Like, now I feel very conflicted.
I hear you. I often get the question, is technology good or bad for you? And I often have the response from William Shakespeare, who once said, there's nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So technology is not inherently bad. Yes, we have a lot of technology, but I really think the problem is when we're misusing it. And if we can teach people to use it better, that there's really no problem. In fact, it is incredibly effective to use fire to fight fire. And so when I'm looking at positive behavior strategies, I think for some individuals, they benefit really strongly from knowing how to use offline tools, and other people, their online the world is online. And so it's very helpful to have tools that help them to manage their online world in an online capacity, because that's how they're thinking and operating. So I absolutely think there's a place for it. I don't think that having digital tools completely is the only solution. I do think we need some balance, but for sure, I think that, oh, there's my dog. Sorry for that.
Sorry.
Surprises.
I have a plant. My plant's still alive, guys. So
very impressive.
Well done.
I don't have any of those in my house that hasn't made it. But yeah, I definitely think there's some wonderful tools that can be used to help provide a greater sense of balance for individuals, that whether it's meditation, whether it's looking at gratitudes or journaling, or just practicing focusing. There's some wonderful Pomodoro timers that can train you to be more focused when you're working. There's technology that helps you turn off technology. It's amazing. So I definitely think there's some benefits there.
So I'm going to ask you so this is something that I'm kind of struggling with, and I don't know if other people would think the same thing. So we're working again in this industry that's really, it continues to be on fire in a good way. And so I'm trying to figure out, how do we transmit the message to the organization that we need people to take digital breaks? We think they should, right? In a way that doesn't appear to be non-supporting of where we are in the business. This is one of the kind of things that you find that the sales folks, the originators, and we're trying to support them in their business initiative, but there's this other piece that is, sometimes we have to slow down to speed up. What ideas do you have about making that a palatable message? How do we get buy-in to that at this point?
So I'm a researcher, right? And I think that data is one of the best ways to share, especially data from individuals themselves, is the best way to share with their employers about what their needs are. And so here's 3 stats that you can use to help you make the case. Number 1 is 82% of employees are asking their employers to do something to help them with their digital wellness. 82%. So there's a pretty strong message from employees to employers. Number 2, 46% increase in the amount of connected device usage since February of this year. So specifically this year, this is a topic that has almost doubled in its problem capacity, but it also is demanding a solution. And the third one is that the searches on Google for how to focus at work have increased by 300% since February. So if you're wanting focused employees, they are literally searching for ways to do that, and they're looking for answers. And I think that they could spend a lot of time searching for that, or employers could just provide it. So I think that those data points really speak to me in terms of, where we're going with this field. And if engagement is an issue, as well as retaining top talent, when a lot of employees are moving companies because there's a lot of shifting in the environment right now, those employers who are investing in these things that the employees want are going to be the ones who retain or attract the top talent.
That is a shocking statistic.
Yeah. Can we talk for a second about, so as you're talking, I'm thinking about addiction. I'm thinking about phone addiction, and the fact that everywhere I go, like even at a restaurant, you see the phone in the back pocket of the waitress. And, years ago, being a server, I could not fathom having a phone with me to be able to text at any given time. And I think that, we always have our phone sitting right next to us while we're working. And I think that, that's always like, I'll be in the middle of an email, or, and you get a text and you're looking at, or you get a notification. And I know I'm not alone. So, but it's this addiction that I think that people can't go without. So how would you suggest, and how is an organization going to say, look, you got to put that aside and focus?
I think there's 2 things here. One, there's the individual behavior, and then there's the organizational behavior. And we're developing these social scripts around what's acceptable. And it's one thing, to tell an employee to put their phone away, but it's another thing if you tell them to put their phone away, but then you're going to text them all the time. So they have to have their phone out, right? So there's some aligning of policy that's really important here. So it might require revisiting policies and procedures. But if we were going to put the onus on the actual individuals, I would say the strategy that I recommend the most often is not that you don't have your phone, it's that you hide your phone. You hide it out of line of sight, because what we're finding in the research is something called the mere presence study. And it says that having your phone in your line of sight, even if you never receive a message on it, can decrease your productivity, your connectedness, and your flow at work, because your brain is reserving up to 10% of brain power to the fact that you might get a message. And that feeling turns out to be highly addictive because we like to be needed. And so you keep thinking, you keep checking your phone whether or not you receive a message, because maybe you did, right? So the strategy is really simple. It's just taking your phone and it's hiding it behind your laptop screen or in a bag or in your back pocket so that it's out of your line of sight. It's that simple. But if you are going to continue to receive a flow of information, then have it near you, but turn off all the notifications that aren't coming from real humans. So all the sports updates, the news updates, the coupon clipping updates, turn it all off, except for the most important messages so that you can do your best job of focusing, given the resources that you have to have around you.
Yeah, and I find it super important to lead by example. For example, our organization is the Digital Wellness Institute. So you can imagine we try to embody what we teach as often as we can. And we don't expect every industry to adopt, say, an auto reply on weekends or after hours. It may be unrealistic. That's something that we do. But you can do little things like, if you are the Zoom meeting organizer, the manager, whoever is calling meetings, you can design meetings to only be 1 hour or 45 minutes. You can remind people to take 5-minute breaks or stretch out and take a breather. You can send emails with a subject line that says urgent or this can wait, but it's more of an FYI, as Amy said. And that is what stimulates the conversation that can start to expose some of those triggers that we talked about. It might bring out in someone like, hey, I didn't even realize how much it was affecting my focus, or how much my eyes were kind of getting glossed over on a long meeting without breaks. So it really is on leaders. And I think it's a testament to this group that a lot of the leaders are on this call. If you just continue to, think about these things, talk about them, try to embody them and learn more about them, and take on these conversations around statistics, around the new movie, The Social Dilemma, is an easy way to kind of bring up the conversation with your people. And you find these things are so relatable, they're just right under the surface. So it is going to be important for leaders, as the remote workforce stays in place in certain industries, to bring up the conversation, find that common ground, and figure out what specifically works for your teams.
Excellent. Thanks, Andrew. So Amy, when we spoke last, you also talked about the 8 prongs of digital wellness. I think you kind of went through some of them real quickly before. Did you want to maybe grab a couple that you think would be most beneficial to talk about with the mortgage folks on the call?
Absolutely, it's a great idea. So let's see if I can rattle off all 8 for you, and then we'll delve into a couple. So the 8 and Andrew, you might have to help me here, but it's productivity, environment, how you're setting up your physical space, communication, relationships, mental health, physical health, the quantified self, which is your data, and digital citizenship. Did it all 8. I've been practicing that. And so those 8 are a way to sort of break down the conversation. And how we arrived at those 8 was we began to look at some of the problems that people are experiencing, the presenting problems, and then we began to look at solutions on the other side. So for the physical health, the problem side might be the dry eyes or the back aches or the neck aches. And on the solution side, it's ergonomics, it's stretching, it's brain breaks. If you were going to look at productivity, some of the presenting problems is both a feeling that you can never finish your to-do list. It's just that, in the same way that we have an endless scroll, it seems like our inboxes are endless scrolls as well. There's no bottom to the inbox, unless you're one of those special individuals who's ever seen that. It's like the the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for me. I've never quite made it. But I think that, you know, not only do we have that, but we also have that sense of working around the clock, the constant connectivity, the Zoom fatigue. And so on the solution side for productivity, it's starting to look at ways to help you focus. Some of the strategies, Andrew mentioned a few of them, and Andrew, feel free to pipe back in, but I use something called Momentum on my Google Chrome, which when I log in for the day, it is a website that brings me to one screen that says, what is your intention for today? And so I start off my day with actually setting my intention before I ever go online to do what I call the tyranny of the urgent. And I actually practice another strategy I learned from the field of positive psychology, which is taking just 2 minutes a day to meditate before I ever put my fingers on the keyboard. So I'm literally just watching my breath go in and out for 2 minutes. I'll even set a timer for myself on my phone. And that way I can just space out for a minute. And what we're trying to do there is go from multitasking in this kind of culturally ADHD world, tyranny of the urgent that we have, to single tasking for just 2 minutes at the beginning of your day. So that when you go back to multitasking, which we're going to do so with a single-minded purpose. And in that 2 minutes, it shapes the entire rest of my day. It helps align my priorities. It helps me to figure out things that I might have forgotten or missed because I was just going to the flashing urgent messages on my desk as opposed to the things that were actually my priorities. So stopping to set my intentions for my productivity. There's also some wonderful strategies I've learned from Nir Eyal, who wrote a book called Indistractable. And he talks about this idea of time boxing. He's actually a part of our digital wellness certificate program. And I listened to him. I was the one interviewing him for the course. And I think my jaw physically dropped when I was listening to him. He was talking about this idea of making chunks of blocks in your day, not just according to your to-do list, and not even just according to your priorities, but according to actually making time to get done the things that you needed to get done. And then for those of you who have little people at home, like I do, I have 3 young children at home. I'm trying to do this remote work thing. They come to me all the time. They say, Mommy, when is your work going to be done? And I am always like, well, you know, I have this endless to-do list, pretty much never, which is not, of course, what they're wanting to hear. But what Nir said that he does, and he also has a child he homeschools from home. He said that what they actually are asking is, Mommy, when do we get playtime? And so it wasn't a matter of when do I finish, but really setting aside an intentional block of time that I am going to commit to being there for that individual. And wow, that was such an aha moment for me, because I tend to be responsive as opposed to proactive in scheduling my day. And it gave me a whole different sense of confidence about how I can up my productivity and my sense of not just efficacy, but really fulfillment as an individual to enjoy work, but also balance knowing that I'm in this remote work environment. So yeah, I really appreciated that. So those are just 2 of the categories and the 8 pillars. I could go on and on for about 30 hours. So I will spare you, but if you have specific questions, or Andrew, I don't know if there's something that popped up that you wanted to share as well there.
No, I think you covered it pretty well. I am going to share the digital flourishing wheel in the chat here so that everyone can take a look. And if any questions pop up, we can go a little deeper.
I think there's a hand raised.
I get that from my kids all the time. I hate, why do you always have to work? I hate, and I don't, you know, I stop at 5, but they're home at 3:45. And so if I'm like, well, I've got to call at 4 and then I'll be done at 5, they don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's hard. But I was thinking too, when you're talking about the morning meditation, that so many of us, even if it was 15 minutes to the office that we used to have, you know, you had that time, you know, because I think now, like what happens with me is in the morning, it's, you know, breakfast, kids out the door, and walk right into my office. Or I might, you know, I'll jump in the shower and then, but there's no, and so maybe the shower is the time, but we used to have some additional time in that drive to work as well. Just to sort of put the music on, you know, like I would call my mom in New York, you know, when I commuted to Columbus, but there was definitely some more me time, I think, for a lot of people than they get now.
Amy, you bring up such a great point. that there's that sense of a need for, and it's very possible to create a virtual commute. So that sense of, if you used to have a 15-minute drive, maybe you schedule that into your calendar for the day that you're gonna, do whatever you would have done on that 15-minute commute. Call your parents, or call your friends, or listen to NPR or a TED Talk, or whatever you happen to do during that time, to go ahead and make space for yourself for that. And on the same thing at the back end of your day, I think that's really helpful.
But I don't think screaming at other drivers from your car,
which was what my New Yorker mom would do.
Hey, if it's in the privacy of your own home, it might be even better.
Jamie had her hand up. Jamie, you're unmuted if you wanted to join in. We'd love to hear from you.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, thank you. This is so interesting. And I am the colleague that Jen keeps speaking of. And, when we talk about digital wellness, this is so impactful for our organization. And, speaking about relationships and doing the digital commute and these things, it's almost like we should know them already, but we don't. And, after 7 months of this. And so I thought it was really interesting, especially because of there's this unexpected vulnerability with digital remote work for those of us that weren't working from home already. So compartmentalization has gone out the window, right? So work life, home life, different, where we could go home and just be with the kids and do the homework. Now we're homeschooling while we're working, and the dog is in the background. And now we're inviting colleagues literally into our home to see all of this. Mm-hmm. And that's vulnerable, right? I mean, I need to take a course in Brene Brown because this is kind of where we are. But it's interesting how you can sort of, now I do time block. So I do some of the time blocking, but really to catch up on tasks that need to be, like, I reprioritize my priority list. But for the kids too, I'll probably need to start time blocking that, because that's a great suggestion, because we are all integrated now in this sort of digital / work life, home life kind of soup is really what it is. But what I thought was even, more interesting too, is like, we're now inviting colleagues, people we don't know, we're zooming into our actual personal space. Mm-hmm. And whereas before, maybe you didn't want somebody to know about your renovation project, and now your teammates are picking out your wall color, right? We're there. Okay. And so how have you seen companies manage towards that vulnerability piece?
Oh, Jamie, thank you so much for sharing. And you had a couple of concepts there that I just had to write down, because I just love the way that you spoke about the work-life, home-like soup and the unexpected vulnerability. Wow, that really resonated with me. I think that everyone is still figuring this out. And like you said, these are things that maybe we felt like that they're common sense, but they're not common action, because we didn't know how to systematize these as an organization, because we never had to do it. Now that we are, there's a lot of things that we're picking up rapidly from one another. So it's a great opportunity to kind of steal or share ideas about the space. I think that some organizations have provided their employees with green screens. So literally a screen behind their chair, like it actually attaches to their chair, so it looks like a green screen, and then a company logo. So that way you kind of have some privacy that people don't have to see into each other's homes. I do think that's, quasi effective for the right kind of situation. But I do think that there's some other things that, allowing people to have their screen off, but still committing to being fully present. I think that temptation is, the moment our screen's off, is to do multitasking in the background. Guilty as charged, I do this as well, but to maybe just have a certain saying, like, in our organization, we're gonna say turn off your screen, but we're all gonna still be very present. We're gonna expect that, something around kind of social script setting for that. But I think a dialogue about what works well for each team can go a long way, because there's so many unique needs and concerns for each different community. So I really started that place with dialogue. Andrew, anything that you'd add to that?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize dialogue. I think conversation is the most powerful thing right now. As you said, it's a new term, digital wellness, and we're diving even deeper than just the terminology right now. So what calls like this and conversations like this do is equip you with the language to then discuss it with your teams. And it's just super important. And all of us can be leaders in our own way. Today, me and Amy had a nice chat about just life. It was we called it a random coffee meeting, and we both committed to going for a walk and chatting about things that weren't work. And I initiated that, even though she's my boss. And that's something that we can all do, even if we're not actually setting up all the meetings in our organization. We can invite some of that that human element when we feel burnt out or bogged down by the work stuff.
And I so appreciated it because, I would have just sat at my desk and had that call until Andrew was like, you know what, let's have a walk-in call. And I was like, yeah, let's have a walk-in call. It's amazing.
I love that.
And then I really did set aside the time.
So I will call out my colleague here. Jamie does that with me often. Hey, let's do a walk and talk. Because, you forget you're allowed to leave your house.
Right.
And I'm like, we're going to go outside and have a meeting. It's going to be in one side of Las Vegas and I'm going to be in the other. And the one, it's a different way to connect. It's just a different environment. And it also provides this release, which I, really appreciate. And maybe Jamie's my Andrew. So however you want.
Yeah. And not to mention,
I think that's so incredible. I don't know why we feel, for me, that resonates so well, because on one hand, you feel like, oh, wow, I'm working from home. I have so much more freedom. And I remember when I first, was able to work from home, I was like, oh my gosh, my house is going to be so much cleaner. I'm going to take my lunch breaks to, and I'm going to eat so much healthier. And it's like the opposite. I go in to get some crackers and cheese and I come right back and I'm not eating, and I'm not doing my laundry. Ironically today, for the first time, I probably in a year, I went and folded some laundry, which is funny that you said to do that. But I was like, my mom's coming from out of town tomorrow. And I was like, all right, I got to get this laundry done. But so I did do that today, but I love that walk and talk idea. I think that's amazing. Like, why wouldn't you take that call, for a walk? One of the things I wanted to say too, is when you were talking about the digital background, I was cleaning and my office kind of becomes the dumping ground for everything else that comes out of the rooms that I'm cleaning. And so I put this virtual background up yesterday to cover it up, but it was very soothing to me, and it made me feel good all day when I had it on. And so I thought, if people could find like a nice virtual background that just kind of makes them feel peaceful and, at ease, that when you're on all these Zoom calls all day long, maybe it makes it a little bit more easy to take, if you're going to be in this, or hope you're in this beautiful setting or something that's very peaceful. It reminded me of like Peru or something. I don't know. So
that's amazing.
Anyway, we have a couple of minutes left, so I just wanted to reach out to our attendees and see if anybody had any questions or comments for Amy or Andrew or Jennifer. And while we see if those get popped in, also wanted to let you know that, Amy and Andrew are from the Digital Wellness Institute. And with talking with Jennifer, we're really trying to see, like Jennifer said, with benefits or talking about how you can help your employees or support them throughout, forever now, I guess, right? But, for sure through this incredibly busy time in the mortgage industry. And so if you have questions, you want to learn more about that. And if you have questions, I will give you in the follow-up email, Amy and Andrew's information, but certainly worth looking into for something to offer. I think, all these companies are making like record numbers monetarily too. And so if they're ever going to put some money into an initiative, this I think is really one that is extremely valuable. And I think that your employees will be grateful, because they'll feel like you care about what's going on. And like I said in my LinkedIn post today, like this isn't going away. If anything, technology is just going to continue on this, this rolling pattern, and it's just going to continue to monopolize more and more of our time unless we really get a grasp on it and take back control, so to speak, of our lives and how it's really sucking us in without us even knowing it. So, you're welcome, Donna. Thank you. Thanks for being here. So I guess if there's no other questions, do you guys have any final parting remarks? This was an awesome call. I thank you guys all for being here so much. Anything that you wanted to leave us with?
One last comment, and actually, Jen, you made me think about this with mentioning Brene Brown, but one of the concepts I love from her book on vulnerability is giving yourself permission. So I want to encourage all of you to give yourself permission to do some self-care in the midst of this crazy time, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's taking that virtual commute, whether it's taking 2 minutes at the start of your day to just clear your mind a little bit. I think that it feels like a luxury, but I absolutely think that digital wellness at this point in our time and lives is a necessity, and that you'll be more productive, you'll be happier, you'll feel more engaged. So give yourself that time and space, and I think that your leadership will ripple out to others as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. And to everybody on the call, just to let you know, at the end, or not the end, the beginning of December, December 1st through the 18th, we are hosting the 12 days of TMC, and it's going to be jam-packed with a bunch of awesome keynotes and sessions. But we are lucky enough to have Miss Amy Blankson as one of our keynote speakers as well. So be sure to check out our website, www.mortgagecollaborative.com, and check out the 12 days of TMC. You'll see a lot of promotion and stuff going on from us. And actually there's an October promotion right now. If you're a CEO or head of your company and you purchase a ticket that is for the whole damn company, you will get entered to win $1,000 in prizes, $500 to go, or I'm sorry, $2,000, $1,000 to go to your favorite charity. So that's, I think, a really good one. And then some goodies for your employees as well. So be sure to check that out. And so, yeah, if you are or not a CEO, but you think this is a great initiative, if you're on the call, forward this information to the heads of your companies. See if it's something that they would like to look into further. If you think it's valuable, then I'm sure they'll think it is as well. So, okay, with that said, enough of my shameless plugs. I will let you all enjoy the rest of your afternoons. Thanks again for being here. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Andrew. And thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate you guys.
Coordinating. I want to give a special shout out to Jennifer for being a leader in the space, who's acknowledging these things and doing the legwork to get these conversations going. Thank you so much for being willing to educate us on your industry. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.